for you, and this was the one that I thought turned out the best issue that gives me an opportunity to show you something. So let's see. How did I didn't even change the background around on this one. Um, I left the girl on the background on this one, and I used the um, foreground as the background, just like I did in the other ones. And so I went with lighten for my blending mode. And so, and the reason I went with the picture of the girl, where is she? There she is. The reason that I went with the picture of the girl for the background, I have a little bit of a problem. It's not a real problem, it's just something I'm going to have to take into consideration. I've got a vertical orientation here. Okay, so she is, the picture I took by camera was rotated, so it's taller than it is wide. Whereas I was holding my camera the standard, normal way, with it at the usual horizontal way for this one. So what this means is I'm only going to be able to use part of this image. What part of it, I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm going to wind up having to scale it up so that it's as tall as the other photograph and cut out more than half of the picture. So let's just see what happens. I'm going to drag this up and touch it to the other picture. And remember, don't let go of your mouse button until you've moved the cursor back over the top of the other picture. Okay, so now you can see I've got this horizontal picture on top of this vertical picture. And you need to make sure you're zoomed out far enough that you can see the desktop around the entire image. Okay, if you're zoomed in so close that you can't see the desktop, you're going to get yourself in a little bit of trouble. So just be sure of that. In fact, I'm always constantly zooming out in Photoshop to make sure that I've got everything on the whole desktop looking okay. It's very easy to get focused on one small area and do something that affects another part of the image and you weren't aware of it. Okay, so what do I do here? Same thing I did in that other one, just because I wanted to change the composition a little bit. I'm going to scale it. And again, that would be Command T, or Edit, Transform, Scale. Okay, and again, hold my Shift key, and I decided that this was probably the more interesting area. I'm not sure, I'm gonna have to play around with it, but I need to scale it up so that, the whole picture that I want to use goes all the way up to the top, and there was a little bit of dead space at the top of that picture, so I'm actually going to scale it a little bit beyond where it was. And I still don't know if this is going to work or not, since I can't see the underneath layer. I'm still going to have to move this around to get my composition the way I like it. I'm going to have to do the transparency part first, or at least make it a transparency part first, so that I can just see how the shapes interact with each other on the two different layers, while we wait and wait and wait. These are pretty big files. You'll probably find that Photoshop, depending on the speed of your computer, Photoshop goes a little bit slower. Okay, and again, I can't remember which one I used. It wasn't screen, it was... Which one did I use? Was it screen? I think it was screen. Lighten's the one I used, okay. I guess I could have written that down. Okay, so I think ultimately I did wind up with something about like this, but let's just look at the whole image and see. Let's kind of drag the whole thing across and see how this is going to affect our composition, because we do still have some decisions to make. I don't feel like this part of the picture is doing anything for it. I think that this is very uninteresting. It's just, there's just a bunch of diagonal lines that's kind of covering it up. There's nothing vertical really happening in there that's of much interest. And there's some text, but I thought the more interesting, more varied text was in the other side of the picture. And there's a bunch of subtle things that are happening here too. So I think I had it so that it wound up that looked something like this, more or less, so that I had this light kind of landed in this little bar right here, and I did kind of get a rule of thirds, not precise, but I did kind of break this into thirds. Here's a line that kind of breaks it up right here. Now we've got, her face is in the middle, but we still have a fairly specific break for the three parts. I'm gonna just make this a little bit bigger. Whoops, not that much bigger. Sorry guys. I didn't really do that. I really didn't. I don't know what happened. But when your computer's running slow, you make a mistake, well, you pay for it. Oh, come on. I'm trying to do a demo here. Stop it. There we go. I'm going to click one more time. Okay. Okie doke. Sorry. All right. So I just wanted to scale this up a little bit more because I thought maybe I could exaggerate that rule of thirds. And yeah, I think I like this a little bit better. And I think this is a little closer to what I had, so that I've really got this curve. One of the things I thought was interesting was I'm looking for shape similarities, and I like the way this curve just kind of perfectly picks up the curve on the back of her head. I like the way this right here starts to look a little bit like a. I liked the way these horizontal lines almost conform with the shape of her body a little bit, and then there's some other just kind of subtle things happening in there. If you look a little closer, there's a little bit there's a almost looks like a reflection in a shop window, but it's front ways. It says $1 million or something. And so there's like a few things that you see that are immediate, and then there's these other little subtle things that you see that take a little time to look at. And if I was going to spend some time on this, I would probably go through it and try all the different blending modes. I wanted to show you in color. You get much bigger range of variations when, I actually like that better. But I wanted to show you some of the things that can happen, because some of these can just look really cool and some of these things can look absolutely awful. I'm not going to do any masking on this one, but some of them it's just, and I don't really think there's a good way to predict what is going to happen. I guess some people can, but I would rather just kind of go through and decide. I've never used hard mix. I think that looks horrible. That's kind of cool. That's not as bad as I thought it would be. But I think at the end I liked lighter color. I think I liked that one the best. So that's really all that you would need to do. So again, I just want to emphasize, do these quickly and make several of them instead of spending a whole lot of time on one. This is how you're going to get the creative process to flow better for you.